Hi, this is Tom Nechville. I'm here to get into some details, very important things for banjo players. I suppose some of this information could be used for guitar too, but let's talk specifically about banjo necks and about the action and playability. And what I'm going to talk about is the most critical part of gaining that professional, perfect, invincible feel where your banjo is just playing in tune well and it's easy to play and you're hitting all those notes without struggling. So let's get on with it. There's two things though that I want to differentiate here, and I want you to understand that there's separate concepts both relating to the action or string height off the fingerboard. The very first consideration that you want to take care of and correct if it's wrong is the amount of bow in the neck. That is the curvature of the neck, and it's bowed like a bow and arrow because it's got a very slight curve in this direction. And you can tell how much curve there is in the neck by, I like to put a capo on at the first fret and last fret. Let me grab this. You could put a capo on at both ends and then have both hands free if you want, but it's kind of hard to put a capo on down at the last fret, so I guess you wouldn't do that. You would just maybe hold it down here. Now what I'm doing at this point is I'm able to see how much the string moves away from the fingerboard. It's touching at the first and last fret, and that string is a straight line, so if it's not touching in the middle, I know that I have bow in the neck, which is good, and you need a little bit. How much? That's what this video is about. So right now I can see that that neck is bowed a lot because I can see the string moving a lot as I'm pushing it against the fingerboard at the middle of this length of string, which turns out to be about the 10th fret. So I will take a feeler gauge right now and I'll stick it underneath there to get an estimation of how much bow we have. Typically a banjo should be set with the bow at between 10 and 20 thousandths of an inch. I have a feeler gauge here. It's actually a tool that we use around the shop, but this is a little more than 10 thousandths thick, and I can stick that very easily underneath the strings, and there's a lot more room left. So if I take a thicker feeler gauge, this one's about 20 thousandths, and stick that under the string, I will check. Oh, boy, that even goes easily underneath the string. And if you're really fancy, you might have a gauge like this one, which is a it's like a fancy gauge from Stu Mac, and I can put that on there, and with the proper lighting, I can tell that I've got about 20, 25 or 30. It looks like I have about 30 thousandths of bow. That's too much. So if I were to try to play this banjo, if I were to try to play it, I make a lot of mistakes, and so that's my excuse. I make mistakes anyway, but let me just show you how I will take care of this bow. It's a truss rod. And I repeat, this is the very first thing that you do when you have an action issue. And even if you don't have an action issue, if your action is perfect, you still might have buzzing problems due to the neck being too straight. And we'll talk more about that in a second. I'm going to grab my handy Craftsman nut driver, number 41971. I mention those numbers because you can probably find this online. It's just an ideal small nut driver that works really well in Nechville banjos to adjust the truss rod. And anybody that has a nut driver that is 1/4 inch can probably use it in this situation. But sometimes the tip is a little bit too wide to fit in this access hole, so you have to be careful that you don't damage your finish around the hole that we're accessing. So I'll set down my neck, and then I will take off the truss rod cover. In this case, I slip the cover to the side because it only has one screw, but you might have to use your screwdriver, take off this cover, and then grab your wrench. And now, which way do I go? On 99% of banjos, you want to go to straighten the neck. You want to push the neck back away from the pull of the strings. In other words, you're flattening the neck, taking the bow out of the neck. That's what I want to do now. I want to go from about 30 thousandths of bow to maybe 10 thousandths of bow, or maybe 10 or 15 thousandths would be ideal for me. Here's another tip. If you turn your truss rod, and a little bit at a time, by the way, you don't want to take a large turn. I think I turned this about 1/4 of a turn, and when your truss rod is already tight, you are typically going to make a large adjustment with a very little bit of turning. So you don't have to go very far, and then you want to check it again. The way we checked it before was we used a feeler gauge. You can also just get used to how 10 thousandths of an inch looks, and over time and time again you'll get more experienced at judging if your bow is right. But maybe you have a business card. If you happen to have a caliper, you can actually measure the piece of cardboard or paper or whatever it is that you're going to use as a gauge. This one comes out at 0.013, and that is about what I want for the bow. So again, you can't do it unless you hold down the string against the fingerboard, and I have a capo holding it down up there. My finger will hold it down here, and then I can use my business card or whatever spacer is about 10 to 15 thousandths thick. Oh, sweet. Okay. That slips under. I might even be able to go a little bit more because I'm not really touching the paper. It's slipping under. In my case, I was thinking that I wanted to get down to about 10 thousandths. So if I grab my 10 thousandth spacer, which fell on the floor, of course, I'm going to double check here one more time. I'm going to go to the first fret with this thinner spacer and just see how far do I need to go. The more lighting you have, the better, and the better your eyes are, the better. But yeah, I'm going to try to get it down closer to this thickness, which is about 12 thousandths. So that means one more time on the truss rod. Here we go. And I'll pull it backwards a little bit. I just turned it about 1/8, maybe a 1/16 of a turn, and that should be enough to make a difference. And that might, yeah, I think that might have done it. So I'll get back, put my preferred feeler gauge, and I will try to put that under the 10th fret here. Let's see if it fits. And it looks to me like that's perfect. And then again, what we have now is the strings are closer to the fingerboard because instead of the neck shaped like this, it's been straightened out and it pulled the strings closer to the fingerboard. And so you need room for that shape of the string vibrating to be clear of the frets. That's the whole reason for the bow, is giving room for the vibration of the string. When you hear that buzzing sound, you know that your neck is probably too straight. So then you would go counterclockwise with your nut driver. I think it's going to sound even better and play easier. So give me a second while I put on my picks and give it a whirl. And meanwhile, I want you to subscribe to our channel and watch out for new videos coming out. We will keep doing this. We love keeping in touch with you, and this is one good way to do it. I hope I've covered the truss rod in detail, and of course it's completely different than action. Action is very important, and the bow is a huge part of action, and it's the most important part, and it's the part you want to take care of first. Once your bow is correct, then you can determine if your bridge is the right height, or if your action is high enough or low enough, and then you can always adjust your neck to fit, or your bridge to fit, or your head tension to gain the proper action. And if you have a Nechville banjo, there's other ways of adjusting the action as well. So more of that in other setup videos. We're just glad that you're there, and thank you for supporting Nechville. We'll see you next time.